All right, welcome back to the Daily Facts. So, the United States Department of Justice dropped this past Thursday, November 12th, 2020, statement on DOJ Office of Professional Responsibility report on Jeffrey Epstein 2006-2008 investigation. So let's read some of this. The executive summary of a report by the Department of Justice's Office of Professional Responsibility (OPR) was released today to affected victims. The summary, which is available on the Justice Department website, provides the essential details about the findings of OPR's investigation into the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida's resolution of its 2006 through 2008 federal criminal investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and its interactions with victims during the investigation. While OPR did not find that the department attorneys engaged in professional misconduct, OPR concluded that the victims were not treated with the forthrightness and sensitivity expected by the department. All right, well then, to me, that would be professional misconduct. I don't know how they define that. Maybe it's specifically defined, but it sounds like they just came to the conclusion that these victims weren't treated properly, and I'm sure they weren't, considering the sweetheart deal that Jeffrey Epstein received, like not having to stay in jail. He could leave and then come back and sleep in the prison. I mean, it was ridiculous. Anyway, let's keep going. OPR also concluded that former U.S. Attorney Acosta exercised poor judgment by deciding to resolve the federal investigation through the non-prosecution agreement, and when he failed to make certain that the state of Florida intended to and would notify victims identified through the federal investigation about the state plea hearing. Yeah, Acosta, President Trump got rid of. I'm not sure why he was hired in the first place, but it's what's done is done. President Trump fired him. In order to fully respect the rights and dignity of Jeffrey Epstein's many victims, the department first invited victims and their legal representatives to be briefed this morning on the report's contents. The Privacy Act prohibits the department from releasing the full report publicly, but permits the report to be disclosed upon request to congressional committee with jurisdiction over the matter, and that has been done. We salute the courage of survivors as they again are confronted with these horrible crimes and their aftermath. The department will thoroughly review the report, which will inform our implementation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act and the Attorney General's guidelines on victims and witness assistance. Okay, so the victims were treated poorly. We get that. We understand that. But you know what? They should be compensated. Monetarily compensated. I don't know if that's going to happen. Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire, so we know he has money. And really, they should just divvy up all of his money and give it to these victims. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, that should be what happens. They're brave, and they went through, all sorts of horrible things. And that will be with them for the rest of their lives. All right, so we're going to now move over to the document here, the executive summary, and we're just going to look at that. And I'm going to provide some commentary because, this whole Epstein thing has really just worked my last nerve. He was an awful depraved person, just like Jussie Smollett and just like R. Kelly and Ghislaine Maxwell. The whole lot of them, which are all on my YouTube channel. But anyway, let's go ahead over and to the document and look at that. All right, so here we are. Office of Professional Responsibility, Executive Summary of Report, Investigation into the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida's resolution of its 2006-2008 federal criminal investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and its interactions with victims during the investigation. And this report was put together in November of 2020. And we all know that Jeffrey Epstein received a sweetheart deal, like I said earlier, about him being allowed to leave the prison, a convicted, child abuser or whatever. All right, so let's see here. The Department of Justice, Office of Professional Responsibility, investigated allegations in 2007 and 8. Prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida improperly resolved a federal investigation into the criminal conduct of Jeffrey Epstein by negotiating and executing a federal non-prosecution agreement. The NPA was intended to end a federal investigation into allegations that Epstein engaged in illegal sexual activity with girls. OPR also investigated whether USAO prosecutors committed professional misconduct by failing to consult with victims of Epstein's crimes before the NPA was signed, or by misleading victims regarding the status of the federal investigation after the signing. That's a handful. That's a lot packed into that. So there's some guilty people, and frankly, they should be fired. And I hope that they were, because they're just spelling it out right here. I mean, it's clear as day what they're saying. The Southern District of Florida improperly resolved a federal investigation into the criminal conduct of Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what more can you say? So they have some factual background. The Palm Beach Police Department began investigating Jeffrey Epstein in 2005 after the parents of a 14-year-old girl complained that Epstein had paid her for a massage. A grown man wants a massage from a 14-year-old girl that isn't his daughter, and that would be a problem in and of itself, too. I mean, this is just, I mean, come on. This is a depraved individual, or was. He's dead now. Yeah, the investigation led to the discovery that Epstein used personal assistants to recruit girls to provide massages to him. And in many instances, those massages led to sexual activity. So we can assume, based on that a 14-year-old was, engaged in sexual activity with a grown man, namely Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, it's just disgraceful. So let's see. The FBI brought the matter to an assistant U.S. attorney who opened a file with her supervisor's approval and with the knowledge of then U.S. Attorney R. Alexander Acosta, the very person that President Trump fired, and is really the one who caused all of this to happen, and for them to come out and say that this was poorly managed. So let's see, Epstein, federal case against Epstein, and in the course of the investigation, they discovered additional victims. In May 2007, the AUSA submitted to her supervisors a draft 60-count indictment outlining charges against Epstein. She also provided a lengthy memorandum summarizing the evidence she had assembled in support of the charges and addressing the legal issues related to the proposed charges. Okay, so I mean, back in 2007, there was a 60-count indictment, but this person was allowed to walk around free and continue to do what he did. It's a disgrace. It's so unfair. For several weeks following submission of the prosecution memorandum and proposed indictment, the AUSA supervisors reviewed the case to determine how to proceed. At a July 31st, 2007 meeting with Epstein's attorneys, the USAO offered to end its investigation if Epstein pled guilty to state charges, agreed to serve a minimum of 2 years incarceration, registered as a sexual offender, and agreed to a mechanism through which victims could obtain monetary damages. That's a nice start. That's a nice start. But here, let me just make some changes here. Serve a minimum of 50 years incarcerated, register as a sexual offender, assuming that you don't die in prison, and give all of your money to all of the victims that you have damaged mentally, most definitely. Let's just keep going and see what else is worth looking at here. On July 7, 2008, a victim identified as Jane Doe filed in federal court in the Southern District of Florida an emergency petition alleging that the government violated the Crime Victims Rights Act when it resolved the federal investigation of Epstein without consulting with victims and seeking enforcement of her CVRA rights. So evidently, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, which seemed to be several, weren't even made aware of this agreement. So they're out there believing that he's going to actually go to court and stand trial. I mean, it keeps getting worse. Soon after he was incarcerated, Epstein applied for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Work Release Program, and the sheriff approved his application. Well, of course. He's not a predator, right, Sheriff? In October 2008, Epstein began spending 12 hours a day purportedly working at the Florida Science Foundation. I wonder if he actually ever showed up. An entity Epstein had recently incorporated that was co-located at the West Palm Beach office of one of Epstein's attorneys. Although the NPA specified a term of incarceration of 18 months, Epstein received gain time. That is, time off for good behavior, and he actually served less than 13 months of incarceration, if you even want to call it incarceration. On July 22, 2009, Epstein was released from custody to a 1-year term of home detention as a condition of community control, and he registered as a sexual offender with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Now, I wonder if that carries over from state to state. You know, our laws are so ridiculous that it probably didn't. It probably only showed up in Florida that he was a sex offender, meaning he had 49 states that he could just do whatever, be flagrant. I mean, it's just reprehensible. After victims and news media filed suit in Florida courts for release of the copy of the NPA that had been filed under seal in the state court file, a state judge in September 2009 ordered it to be made public. By mid 2010, Epstein reportedly settled multiple civil lawsuits brought against him by victims seeking monetary damages, including 2 petitioners in the CVRA litigation. Okay, so he's given out money. In 2017, President Donald Trump nominated Acosta to be Secretary of Labor. At his March 2017 confirmation hearing, Acosta was questioned only briefly about the Epstein case. On April 17, 2017, the Senate confirmed Acosta's appointment as Labor Secretary. Let's read a little more of this. In the decade following his release from incarceration, Epstein reportedly continued to settle multiple civil suits brought by many, but not all, of his victims. Epstein was otherwise able to resume his lavish lifestyle, largely avoiding the interest of the press. You know, it's just unfortunate that Epstein is dead, because you wonder if any of this would have come about. Like, would this report have been dropped? Would they have said, you know what, we did not do our due diligence, we did not do right by the victims? Would we be seeing something like this? I think that even though Epstein was arrested, I think we still should have been made aware. The public should have been made aware of this. On November 28, 2018, however, the Miami Herald published an extensive investigative report about state and federal criminal investigations initiated more than 12 years earlier into allegations that Epstein had coerced girls into engaging in sexual activity with him at his Palm Beach estate. I like how they keep saying girls, because that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what they were, girls, children. On February 21st, 2019, the district court granted the CVRA case petitioner's motion for partial summary judgment, ruling that the government violated the CVRA in failing to advise the victims about its intention to enter into the NPA. Okay, so again, they're just talking about how they were caught off guard. They were blindsided. Who cares about the media being blindsided? You know, the victims are what matters. They were blindsided. On July 10, 2019, Acosta held a televised press conference to defend his and the USAO's actions. Well, I'm sure he did. Acosta stated that the Palm Beach State Attorney's Office was ready to allow Epstein to walk free with no jail time, nothing. According to Acosta, because USAO prosecutors considered this outcome unacceptable, his office pursued a difficult and challenging case and obtained a resolution that put Epstein in jail, forced him to register as a sexual offender, and provided victims with the means to obtain monetary damages. Acosta's press conference did not end the controversy, however, and on July 12, 2019, Acosta submitted to the president his resignation as Secretary of Labor. Well, I bet you President Trump just said, you know what, dude, if you don't resign, I'm firing you. You're fired. In a brief oral statement, Acosta explained that continued media attention on his screwing up of the Epstein investigation rather than on the economy was unfair to the Labor Department. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found hanging in his cell and was later pronounced dead. The New York City chief medical examiner concluded that Epstein had committed suicide. See you later. All right, well, I'm not going to go into any more of this. They came out and admitted, and this report definitely backs that up, and it just points out all of the mistakes that they made. So there you have it. I'm going to end it there. Thank you for stopping by the Daily Facts. Do like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.